risking the land. 'Cause I know you always can.
Man, hot diggity damn, we are back here up in the treehouse. I'm rocking my Jack Farmer tee. I'm feeling pretty good. This is What's Up Flobo After Hours, the award-winning late-night talk show. We're doing crazy things, and I want to thank all to everyone out there watching live on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Twitch, especially on that Twitch. Do me a favor, drop me a follow. I appreciate you and all of that. Now, my guest today, Levine, is running a little late. She's a mom. She has to put down the baby to bed to understand that. So that's why I take this time to say thank you so much for checking the show, episode number 66. And this show is made possible by members of the Boisterous Crew. That's what we call our Patreon. Patreon.com/Flobo Boys. Those are people that go out there and they say, you know what? Keep making that content. We're talking about bonus episodes. We're talking about New Amsterdam radio extra interviews. We're talking about Flobito's book club. We're talking about gig blogs, first access to things like my song and all of that jazz. So Patreon.com/Flobo Boys. So I have to give a shout out to Christopher C, Christy H, ACH, Edric P, Oliver E, Princess Leia, Matthew C, John W, and Richard R. You make this show a reality. And while Ali makes her way over here, please drop a little comment or question for her, because we're going to get right into it. But I just want to say, now we have everyone's attention. Got the announcement to make. I'll go more into detail this week on What's Up Flobo Classic. That's the show I do on Wednesday afternoons or Wednesday mornings. But we have a final episode. What's Up Flobo After Hours is going away. That's it, man. November 22nd, 2021. That would be the final show. It's been a crazy run. It's been one of the highlights of the pandemic for me to be able to give you this entertainment every Monday night, even though we had to start off as being like the after show to the Raw after show. It kind of grown to its own thing. So November 22nd, 2021. If you don't watch the show every week, if you watch on demand, if you're on the audio version, that's okay. Make sure you come out for that one, because after that one, we will be going away. And the chat is basically, am I getting booed? I'm sorry, Jack. I'm letting people know. Yes. So November 22nd, excuse me, 10 o'clock. We have the show already planned. Very, very cool panel, cool special guests for that. But in the meantime, I don't want you guys to get sad. I need you guys to rock with me as we head into the final episode of What's Up Flobo After Hours. Like I said, this show's a lot of fun. I'll go into more detail as to why I am saying goodbye on this week's episode of What's Up Flobo. But in the meantime, until then, we're going to have the time of our life. So we're still waiting for Ali Levine here. Just to give you a little bit of a background, fantastic person. I actually met her on a podcast exchange site. I was looking for a cool guest. It turns out 4 or 5 degrees of separation here. One of the things she did, she helped style people over there in Los Angeles and the whole celebrity culture. She will style the cast of Vanderpump Rules. One of the people on Vanderpump Rules was Ariana Madix, which is someone I had on the show earlier this year. And so it was kind of like this cool connection about having this like Hollywood sensibilities and styles and all that. So I said, you have to be on the show. And I asked her, what do you want to talk about? It's basically fair game. I have these topics ready to go. We're going to talk about her being a stylist, talking about her on strips, her background, the home life. She just moved out to the Midwest. So can't wait to talk about that. But in the meantime, whoa. I'm looking at the chat here. Jack Farmer question, why am I a quitter? You know what, Jack? I give you free entertainment every week. No, you know what? I'm not a quitter, man. It's not a quitter if you call your shot. I learned that from Steve Kaufman, who was a fellow friend of the show and a former guest. One time when we were doing the AfterBuzz thing, he just came in one week and going, I'm doing Raw, SmackDown, NXT, and Fastlane pay-per-view review. I called my shot. I'm done doing things. And I appreciate you, James. The best I show in the land. Yeah, there's not many people in the land out there, just me. But I appreciate you, because I really wanted to do this. It was a cool journey. I say this all the time, so bear with me if I say it a lot, but this show is supposed to be basically What's Up Flobo, but at nighttime talking about like news and pop culture and current events. And it was fun, but talking to yourself, like I'm doing right now, isn't the greatest. And so I decided to have some of my friends on. And I said, okay, we'll have a panel show. We'll get my friends to talk about what's going on. And frankly, it was 2020. We were all burnt out by the news. We were all burnt out by current events. 2020 was a beast and a half. And so it kind of morphed into like this, late night comedy thing. And so that's why it's pretty cool. JLJ, that was a sense of how it is to have a late night show. I mean, it's been nuts. I mean, you guys have been here week to week. There's been time where I have guests that bailed the day of. I had guests that had terrible tech issues. I have guests that said, look, I can't even be on your platform. It's been a trip. But right now, like I'm out here live talking about a seat in my pants about this show that I'm doing. Didn't want to break the news so early, but because my guest is out there doing with real life, I'm making that happen. I'm filling time because there's no commercial breaks, there's no ads. I'm just going out and doing it, and that's why I love this so much. I love live entertainment so much. People always tell me, Flopito, why don't you get a blog or a vlog or do what the kids are doing with quick cuts and songs and stuff? And I dabble with that, but I'm an editor by trade, and I get stuck in a perfectionist cycle of trying to make sure everything's perfect. But when it's live, it's live. Lights are on, we're going. I can sneeze, I can curse, I can tell you what about that room. I'll tell you what in a second. Jack Brown has a question. He goes, while you're stalling, what's the joke you're least proud of writing? Oh, it's a good one. So it's good to have, when you're working in the comedy thing, we work in the comedy, it's good to have a closer, right? So there's a thing called running the light where you have a last minute or last 2 minutes, they'll flash a light in your eyes and the comic goes like the acknowledgement. Okay, I have acknowledgement that I have a minute or a minute and a half to go. And so a lot of times you'll be in the middle of a joke, or maybe you mistimed your set and your big closer is not going to fit into that last hour or last minute of grace period. So you want something quick. You want something just to get you out of there. And so I can tell you this joke now because I've totally cut it off. But my closing joke when I am short on time and I just want that last joke to get off the stage, I would say, how comics when they're done, they go, "That's my time, peace." I would say, "Hey, look, being a comedian is great because that's the only job you can do that. You can get on stage, tell jokes, and go, 'That's my time, peace.' Like you can't do that." If you're a doctor, you can't be a doctor and walk in and go, "Yo, your test results came back. You have leprosy." But that's my time. Woo! And it's funny for what it was. The reason why I hate it now is because it's almost too cheap, right? It's kind of like, yeah, well, I'm out of time. I guess I got to do it. Do you know what I mean? I got to make that happen. And sorry, I'm looking at Haywood's question. Mona or Angela? Are you talking about who's the boss? I mean, Mona was way funnier. As a DJ, what song bombed the hardest? Now, I'm a firm believer that nothing really bombs. It's just bad timing, like bad jokes. There's a lot of songs that I love that don't work. And I will say that Ghost Town by Adam Lambert has missed more times than it has. But who could this be? We have our special guest in the studio. Please give it up for Hollywood. What's going on? You're muted. You're muted. I can't hear you. Technical difficulties. We got here.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. What's going on?
How are you?
I'm sweating. I was talking about comedy for the past 10 minutes. But how you doing?
So sorry. My baby decided to wake up, and so I was like trying to get her handled so that we wouldn't be interrupted in the show.
Yeah.
I thought, midnight she would be asleep. Of course, mom life, not so much. So, yeah.
Well, tell me about mom life, because I mean, unfortunately, it's impossible for me to be a mom. So, how was your experience, having little youngins of your own?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot. I tell everyone, I'm like, it is definitely not for the faint of heart, but I love it. I love being a mom. I love, getting to have my two little fashionistas, my two little girls dressed them. They're like my favorite clients to dress now.
Yeah.
And they're so much fun. They have such great personalities. They're so night and day. And they both teach me constantly. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I really love it. And I feel like it makes me a better human. Like it makes me a better wife. It makes me a better Allie. Like they just bring out the best in me. So as much as it's exhausting, like when they're teething right now and won't sleep, that I won't miss. But I love all the stages. It's so much fun. I have a 3-year-old and a 16-month-old.
Oh wow! And the chat is so glad you're here. There's people from all over.
Hi.
And James Lott Jr. You actually worked with him before.
I love James. He's a dear friend. He's wonderful. Yes, we've collaborated in tons of things as well as become very close friends. My husband loves him. He came to see Amelia, my first daughter, when she was first born. So yeah, he's like family.
I swear, this guy knows everybody. It's kind
He
of
does.
weird.
He's like the mayor.
Yeah, he's the mayor of Los Angeles, which is pretty rad. So you're out there in the Midwest. You had a recent move because you were in Los
We
Angeles
moved
before.
to Tennessee. Yep, we moved to
Okay.
Tennessee about a couple months ago. We're right outside of Nashville, and it's really fun. It's totally different, but it's a cool switch up.
What was the cause? Was it the pandemic? Was it something else? A career change?
It was kind of a mix of things. You know, I think the pandemic for most of us put a lot into perspective in our lives. And it was just like everything was remote. And it was a blessing that my husband's job was remote since the beginning of the pandemic. All the things I was doing went remote. And it was like, you know what? Why wouldn't we be closer to family? Why wouldn't we try? We knew we weren't going to be in California for forever. We were there for a decade and it was a lot longer than we expected to be. And it was amazing. But it was just like, you know, we felt like it was time and we knew having the girls, we could be closer to family and all of that. So yeah, we were just ready for a new chapter. And I'm very big on signs and my intuition. I literally just felt like God told me it was time. And so I said, all right, we're going.
So was it like a moment, like a lightning bolt, like you need to move, or was kind of like little by little, you're like, you know, I'm not really feeling home here. Where is home going to be? Was it a longer process or a short one?
You know, in the beginning, it was kind of like little bits and pieces. The year before the pandemic, I think it was like right after, you know, motherhood, and things started shifting for me. I think a lot of women go through that after you have your, you know, child. And I started kind of like just having my own journey. And then the pandemic hit, and it like just sped up. Like all of a sudden it was like, yeah, okay, it's becoming very clear, like it's time to go. And then when everything went remote, because at first when we kind of talked about it, just my husband and I, Justin and I, it was like, oh, well, we'll see maybe down the road, we'll see what happens. And then the blessing of the pandemic, I think for many people, is we've all learned how to, you know, pivot and remote and do all these different things. We actually learned how many more strengths we all have. And I said to him, I'm like, you know what, if things change and we're able to go, let's go. And so his job, you know, it was amazing. They were like, yeah, as long as you're going to work from the same place, like it doesn't matter. So they're going to be home, like as long as you get the job done. So he just shifted his hours, and all of my work is remote online, even my TV segments and all the appearances I make. You know, if there's anything I need to go to, I can go. But overall, it's been a blessing, and we're excited to be here. We're really loving Tennessee. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's a weird, I won't say weird. It is a very unique situation to go through something as major as a pandemic, like once in 3 lifetimes, and be like, well, you know, it wasn't that bad. There was some good parts. It's an odd feeling.
I know, as I tell everyone, I'm like, look, I understand there's, of course, so much hardships, much tragedy. I don't downplay that at all. But I do believe that you've seen between people's careers, you know, family changes, all kinds of things. It's definitely brought, I think, for most people, heightened to them what's really important, how to become intentional. I know for my life, it really made me be like, okay, now I really need to focus on the things I wanted to focus on versus feeling like I had to constantly keep up with the rat race. And I actually think it's made me be more productive in my business as well as happier in my personal life.
Kind of question I'm going to mix with this one. Tammy Gouveia asks, she says, how does your intuition speak to her? But also you mentioned to be intentional. Are they related? How does one relate to the other?
Yeah, I love this question. So I would say when it comes to intuition, for me, it's like my higher self, that little inner voice that we all have, whether we listen to it or not. We all get it. And of course, there's noise all around us, and there's all kinds of things telling us different things, and, you know, doubts and, you know, non-beliefs and all these things. But when you really quiet all of that and get quiet with yourself. For me, that's meditation and prayer. I do breath work. I do a lot of different types of more, you know, holistic, natural ways to tap into that quieter self and that inner voice. And so when I hear that, I really listen and, you know, try to figure out like, okay, what's being shown to me, what's being told to me. And I believe in signs. I believe that God does, you know, give you that, and the universe shows you those things if you ask for them and you're willing to be open to receive. And so for me, like I'll get like number signs and just different different things, and then I'll say, okay, this was like my confirmation. I know this was it. Sometimes it's even like the lights flickering when I'm like sitting and meditating and I'm like asking something and all of a sudden, and I'm like, okay, received. It's like,
Yeah.
and some people are like, oh, that's so, and I'm like, for me, it's not. For me, I know that is my inner voice. That is the inner guidance. That is my guides helping me. And I think being intentional in that, it's like there's a couple parts of intention, I think, right? We can all have the best intentions, whether it be for your own career, for your family, for whatever it might be. But if you don't take action in that intention and actually move the intention forward, it just stays an intention. And you can't sit there and wonder, why did nothing happen for me? I said all these amazing intentions. Like people will say to me, how come, you say talk about this with manifesting and then this will happen? How come I constantly try to manifest and nothing happens? And I'm like, well, let me ask you a question. Besides like you wanting these things, like what are you doing to take steps forward to do them? Because if you're not doing anything, like it's not just going to be handed to you. Nothing in life.
I crossed my fingers and my toes, Allie. Why isn't that working out?
I fixed my heels together. What happened? I mean, I would love that. Like glittery heels. Yeah, but no.
JLJ has a question. He says, you're very real about sharing your life. How do you choose what is private and what to share publicly?
It's a good question, James. So I think going back to motherhood, I mean, James knows me from kind of the beginning of it all, but going back to motherhood, I think opened me up in a whole new way, spiritually and just like in my own intuition and personal life, and made me take a hard look at good things and bad things that we all have about ourselves, and a lot of like shadows I had to face and go through. And I think that was the beginning of it for me, was that deep dive into motherhood, going through postpartum depression as a mom. A lot of people know I went through that, and that was really, really hard and difficult for me. I never expected to experience that. Like I just thought I was going to have my baby and like move along. And it was just like, yeah, no. And for me, it was really dark for like over a year or so. And so when I went through that, I had to do a lot of soul searching. I had to do a lot of just Allie work, things I didn't want to work through that I had to work through. And I think that from going through that opened me up into a more real, raw space. When we start to do the inner work and we start to work on ourselves, it's almost like peeling back the onion, and you just keep peeling and peeling. And I'm still peeling, by the way, like it never ends, but it's like, you get in there, right? But for people that don't even start and don't want to do the work, you kind of just stay in this, like, in my opinion, comfortable space, which may or may not be working, but it's like eventually you're going to have to kind of pull back the layers and really look at things. And so for me, I think that's where the real raw space started. And then to go back to intuition, like we were talking about, whenever I feel called, like I feel like something's been put on my heart and I really feel like it's been put there, that's when I choose to share it. And I get even more vulnerable and even more real and raw, because at first I was trying to just create content around that because that's what people wanted. And then I realized I felt like not authentically myself, because I was just thinking about things to say instead of allowing to actually come to me to be like, oh, this is truly what I'm feeling. And someone, or maybe many people, need to hear this. And then that's what I share.
Yeah, that is a very astute point, how there is that balance of like, you want to share because you want people to see that you're surviving, but then you kind of like, don't give them everything because you might feel like not real authentic to you. You are a self-professed mompreneur, and I know that definition is evolving day by day. What does it mean to you, especially now with your business interests?
Yeah, I mean, I think mompreneur means like, you're doing it all. And, I tell a lot of moms this when they say to me like, oh my gosh, you really do it all. And I'm like, I may do it all, but not all at once. And just because social media may look like that, it's not the case whatsoever. And also too, like I have my breaking points like any other entrepreneur, and I have my times where I have to learn how to rest and say, okay, you know what, rest is productive too. And so I think it's just adding in, that entrepreneurial spirit with the motherhood sense of just knowing for any moms, like you can do it all, but maybe not all at once. And you have to get, again, very intentional about what you want to be doing and how that's going to look, because that's different for everyone. And also too, I think like for me, I've learned that like, just because sometimes it doesn't look like it's heavy doesn't mean it isn't heavy. Like there are days where I am exhausted and it's like so hard for me to show up, but I choose to show up for myself anyways. I think that's where you really see that mompreneur shine. It's like that entrepreneurial spirit, but then you got motherhood in with it. And it's like, I'm working, I'm doing all the things, I'm raising my girls, but I'm choosing to show up for myself.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, once you have kids, man, those board of trustees, I tell you, they get hungry every day. Tammy Govan says, thank you for sharing about your postpartum depression. Mental health continues to be glossed over. Have that been in your experience, seeing other people in your situation having to deal with their business interests and their mental health too?
Absolutely. I think I love that comment, because I think that first off, like everyone posts, right, for Mental Health Day. And I think it's, don't get me wrong, I didn't post this year. I had a lot of people DM me and be like, how come you didn't post? You've posted in the past. And I said, you know what? I realize I don't appreciate that this is one day that we make a big hype on this. Why are we making it one day? This is something that affects people on a mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, all levels of their lives. And why are we not making this something that we should continuously talk about to be well in mind, body, and soul? And that's my biggest thing, right? Is like, for me, spiritual wholeness is the entire enchilada. It's not just one or the other. At least it's been my experience for myself and my journey. And I think that when it comes to postpartum depression, especially because like so much of media and magazines and celebrities and all these things, we see them just quote unquote bouncing back. And I was totally in that. Like, I was styling all these celebrities, and when my body didn't bounce back to what I thought it was going to be, I was shocked. I was devastated. I was like, hey, what happened? Like, why wouldn't that happen to me? And it was just like, and the list went on. And I think so many moms suffer in silence because we see all these things where we're supposed to immediately bounce back and we're supposed to just, get it together again. And it's like, you just had a human, you just birthed a child, you carried it out for 9 months. Like, can we just celebrate that? And also celebrate maybe going forward in our lives and not having to go backwards in every sense of the way. So that's what I've had to honestly constantly work on for myself and my, my own body issues and my own mental clarity and all that. And so I think it's an ongoing journey and battle, but I do agree that it's definitely glossed over and something that needs to be continuously talked about, which is why I chose not to post for the day. And I'll probably do a post like sometime this month where I'm speaking to that exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's usually more doubt. I always tell people like doubt is like your body odor. Like, you could take a shower, but it's gonna come back if you don't check it every couple of days or so, or every day. In my
doubt
case,
doubt is hard. Like, doubt is like, those are those limiting beliefs, right? That like, whether it's around you, whether it's family, whether it's friends, whoever it is, they're like, yeah, no, that's not going to happen. Yeah, no, I don't think so. And it's like, you have to be willing to push past that. And I have that too. Like, that's where I feel like my meditation and my practices and the things that I do really help me work through those limiting beliefs, those doubts, those moments of like, oh, never mind, I just can't do it. Oh, you know what? Actually, I feel the postpartum depression thing kicking in again. And I'd rather just go crawl into my little, cocoon and just stay there. It's like, that's easy for all of us to do on whatever level you're in. But again, it's like, I think showing up for yourself and also being like radically self-aware, I think is really important. I have had to get really real with myself on a very uncomfortable level.
Oh yeah. I mean, the soul searching is not easy. Shout out to JLJ. Allie's very empathetic. She helped me with the depth of my brother and grandmother. That's really cool. That's really cool. You help a friend in need. That's really awesome.
Well, we're all, here for each other. I tell everyone all the time, no matter what's going on in the world right now, I really believe like we are one as a collective and we come from one complete source, whatever that is for anyone. For me, it's God. And I think that when you think about that, you need to have that love and empathy no matter what's going on, because we're all human doing our best right now.
So switching gears a bit, you said you do a lot, which is true. I'm not trying to interrogate you. You say you do a lot. I mean, you do, but what's that day to day? I mean, what is that? Like, do you carve out parts of the day? You say Tuesday is just going to be the modeling stuff. Like, how does that work?
Yeah, it's funny. I used to do that. I used to do like Mondays was editing day and Tuesday was follow-up day and Wednesday was creation day. And then I had the girls. Sure. And that all went out the window. In the beginning with Amelia, it was like, well, of course, I have my postpartum depression. But besides that, with Amelia, with my first, it was a little bit easier to do like, okay, I can focus on just this today. Okay, I know she naps at this time. But when you add two into the picture, or like moms that have like multiples, I'm like, oh my God, hats off to you. Basically, like, they don't care about your effing schedules. They do whatever they want. And they're like, right. I want to do this and I want to go outside and I want to play with this. So yes, there's some days where I'll know like I need to get back to these emails and these are the things I'm going to be intentional about. Or today I need to record with this guest and I have this podcast. But you know what? I'm not going to lie. Like, there are times, I mean, James, perfect example. Like, he was supposed to be on my show a couple months ago. I had to cancel because Arlie wouldn't sleep. She wouldn't take a nap. And I was like, I'm so sorry, but I can't get her to sleep. I mean, like, yeah, these are the things that in motherhood, I think, where we can get into the doubts and limiting beliefs that you're talking about, where it's like, oh, how am I going to do it? If I can't record today, it's like the be all end all. I had to get that out of my head and be like, you know what? No, I don't have to have such a rigid schedule. I'm going to go with the flow. I'm going to handle my girls. And then wherever I find my pockets of time, I'm going to make it work. And I'm very blessed that my husband does work from home and he's so supportive of me. So if I really need help, like, hey, babe, I have to work on content for this, campaign for brand, or this is on a deadline, as long as he's on a deadline, he'll step in, he'll help me, and I'll get, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, depending on whatever it is. So don't get me wrong, I'm very blessed for that help. But at the same time, I'm also way more go with the flow. And I laugh at myself about that because I used to be so rigid, and I feel like I'm a recovering workaholic.
Yeah.
And I feel like between the pandemic and becoming a mom and all the things, I'm really learning how to be intentional and learning how to just go with the flow. And it's funny, like I was having this conversation with another mom on Instagram the other day who was like, yeah, I try to do that, but when I do, I get so worked up and I get rigid again, then things get messed up. And I'm like, well, here's a thought. When you get rigid again, things get messed up. Do you think that maybe you're pushing yourself so much and you're out of flow with like what's going on with the universe? Where I do believe when you push so hard, the universe will push back and be like, no, it's not happening, no matter how much you want it, no matter how hard you're working for it. And when you stay in alignment and flow and allow it to just kind of like be fluid, you'd be surprised how much more actually plays out for you. And that continues to happen for me. So every time I start to catch myself wanting to make more schedules and be more rigid with the girls, I'm like, oh, nope. Things are working. Let's just let it go, you know? And some days, like, look, some days are a shit show. Like, let's be real. I'm a mom, like, you know, and I work from home. Like, there are some days where, like, tonight, you know, I'm late to the show. Arlie woke up. She, you know, she's teething. She's got teeth coming in. I can't control those things, you know? So, I mean, it's like, that hurts, you know? But it hurts, you know? So it's like, I don't know. I think that sometimes we get wrapped up between social media and all these things where we feel like it's the be all end all. And like, unless I'm actually like curing cancer or saving someone's life, like it's all right. Like it'll be figured out. And I also believe that like, if that opportunity is going to be an opportunity, it will come back around. It will, you know, be there. And if it's not, then maybe it wasn't in alignment in the first place and it'll fall off. But I really believe when you stay within that, it creates more passion within you. It creates more intention within you, and it allows you to be in flow.
A recovering workaholic. I too am suffering from that workahol. David Menny says, parenting life is rough. Yeah, kudos to you. Sleep is gold. Sleep is always gold.
It's midnight here in Tennessee or 12:30, whatever it is. And when Flobo was like, you know, come on my show, I was like, what time? He's like, well, midnight your time. I'm like, all right, well, let's do it.
Yeah, I was like, okay, cool. Because I'm drinking tea because I'm like, I have the show at 10. Oh my gosh. I mean, this single life is so exhausting. But when it comes down to being intentional and refilling the cup, you say you meditate, but what do you do like actively for fun? Are you a movie night person? Do you go out to the lake? Like, how do you refill that cup?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So I got a few things. So one, I mean, this is a total like girly fashion stylist. I will go in my closet and I just love to create fun looks. Even if I'm not going to even wear them for till God knows when, I like to put them together. I like to put them together and be like, this flows fun with this. And this color is really cool. And this pops out more than I thought it did. And I like to like just test my own like styling and creative skills. So it's really fun for me. Sometimes even just sourcing and like going into an old magazine or just like going online at old blogs and finding different things to put together. It's fun for me. I love getting outside. I do love being like just in like nature, just in the sunlight. And usually it's going outside with my girls, playing with them, you know, just kind of getting that refresh. I do like to ground my feet in the ground. So it's really funny. I take my slippers off because I'm usually always wearing fuzzy slippers, and it's either heels with me or fuzzy slippers, not usually
right.
And yeah, exactly. So like I'm outside with my daughter today and I took my fuzzy slippers off and I'm like putting my feet in the grass and like doing this, and she's like, Mama, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm grounding. And she's like, and I'm like, yeah, you know, the ions, they help your feet, they help your body reset. Of course, she's 3. She's looking at me like that. Right. But I still explained it to her. But like, I enjoy doing that. I really do feel like it gives me a good reset. You know, I like to meditate outside when I can, even just for 5-10 minutes, just sitting in the sunlight and closing my eyes and like really thinking about what I'm intentional about. I say, you know, my intentions out loud, so I hear myself, and I think that also helps. You know, I like a good movie night, you know, with my hubby when we get a minute but together, you know, we'll watch a movie or just like, you know, watch a documentary or something fun. I always enjoy something like that. But it really, honestly, just depends on my mood. You know, like, am I in the mood to cuddle up and like watch a movie and like, you know, be, you know, interested, or am I more like wanting to be creative. Like, what does it look like? Or is it just a walk, like around the block, you know, and just like resetting myself? It just kind of depends. Or maybe I'm just vegging out. I'm like, oh, I don't usually like go crazy on the, dessert, but like every now and again, I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do like the s'more pie. Let's do it,
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Dessert, say less, fam.
Right?
Charlene says booze, but then follows it up with her ways are so much more healthier than my idea.
Okay, look, it's funny. You know what? Look, like we all, especially with this time, we've all had our share of drinks. I mean, look, my husband and I, when the pandemic first hit, we were like literally like, oh, wine? Sure, wine. It was like, it's funny.
Summer camp.
Yeah, summer, exactly. It's funny though, going through, I think, my own spiritual journey, I've felt like called less and less to have like drinks. And I laugh at myself because I've always been someone, I still like enjoy a social drink, but I've always been someone who used to have a glass of wine before I go to bed at night to kind of unwind. And it's funny, I haven't had that pull in a very long time. And now it's like, oh, I'll have a little cup of tea, or I'll just have like water with like cucumber and lemon. Like I've just totally switched, and couldn't even tell you why, but it's just now how I feel. Like I just feel lighter going to sleep, and I feel like I sleep better. So I don't know, but yeah, I mean, look, I like to have an occasional cocktail, nothing wrong with that. Or my hubby and I are sitting outside on our beautiful front porch here. We'll just sit outside with a glass of wine and our little swing chairs and hang out. So yeah, I mean, but overall, I try to be healthy overall. I think for me, I've learned also over the years, like every time I get nuts about my food, I start to notice everything else goes downhill too. I get like totally out of shape. I don't feel good. I can't bounce back the way I used to even before kids, like, so it's like, yeah, it's not worth it. I usually stick to more healthy. And then every now and again, when I'm really feeling it, like Sunday night football, my husband, we went out to the bar here, took the girls and, ordered s'more pie while he was finishing the game. I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm going to go for this chocolate pie.
Yeah, you deserve it. I was going to move on, but Tammy Gavay had a really cool question. She says,
oh, sure.
Can you share some of your intentions? Articulating intentions is challenging for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this question. So first off, obviously, I always tell people when they ask me this, like, you have to do what resonates for you. I always say, subscribe to your own channels. Like, I have a hard time with when people are like, oh, listen to this person and meditate. And then there were so many times where I would, and I couldn't meditate to save my life. And I was like, not inspired, turning it off. It was like, and be like, but they're so good. And I'd be like, but not everybody feels that way about every single person, right? That's why we're all so uniquely different. So it's like, find the things that really resonate for you. For me, like, I like things like you are light, you are loved, you are protected, you are empowered, you are inspired, you are the light, you are loving, you are kind, you are empowering. Like, I like the shift of like saying what you kind of essentially want to what you are, and how that shift goes back and forth, and kind of that dance and duality between the two. And I say it out loud. Sometimes, like, honestly, I'll take a hot shower for like a hot, 10 minutes, being that I'm a mom, and, I'll jump, in the shower, and, while I'm doing it, I'll go for my hot shower after I'm done to like a quick cold plunge before I get out to kind of wake myself up. And they also say cold plunges are really good for the body and for the mind. So I'll go into a full-blown cold plunge, and I'll just put my hand, you are love, you are light, and I just like get myself going and talk out loud and yell. My husband usually makes fun of me, and it's all good fun. But I think you have to like have that fun with yourself, and you have to ask yourself, like, what are you calling to bring in? What do you want to bring into others? And just start writing words down. And you can also look up, of course, on like YouTube and Spotify and Google all different types of intentions that are out there. But the biggest thing to me is like, find the ones that speak to you. Don't do them just because they're the top rated, or you feel like, oh, this person's a celebrity, blah, blah, blah. Find what speaks to you, and only you are going to know that, and then go ahead and, check it out. And feel free, please, if you want to DM me on social, I'm happy to share some of the ones that I have as well.
Yeah, Tammy, you're the light. No, I was funny because like people who listen to the chat, I'm a big wrestling fan. I've said this a couple of times on different shows. I announce myself as if I am a wrestler when I come out of my shower. There's like this is a mirror right here, so I'm coming out. It's all Flobito, which is kind of weird because my camera's right here every day. So I'm always like, is it on? So I totally do the whole like body thing. That's
you gotta hype yourself up, right? Like,
yeah,
your biggest fan. Like, I mean, as much as we love the people around us, it's like you got to deal with yourself all the time. You got to have. I've realized it over and over. Like, you got to have the best relationship with yourself, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, you know what? Who is going to toot your horn but you, right?
That's right. That's right.
So I have a random question. I'm not sure if it's a question that's appropriate because it may be like the showing the hot dog made in the factory. But like when you do those news reports, like the 10 hottest back to school products, like how does that work? Do you like go out there and get it yourself? Are you giving testing ones? Do you do the display yourself? The news people tell you, no, put this one over. How does that work?
Totally. Yeah. So I honestly will only work with brands that I know and I have relationships with. Everyone is different. So I don't want to speak for everyone because some people will just throw in random brands, or a producer says, I have this brand, I want it in. For me, again, I'm all about the authenticity through and through. So I won't work with someone just because they're like, hey, I've got all this cash and like I want to have my product in it. If I haven't used it, or if I can't speak to it, or if I don't feel like it's something I would genuinely use in my life or someone else couldn't benefit from, I'm not going to do it. Like for example, even my social media, I get asked to do like, the sex whatever dildo campaigns, and like no shade, so many people do them. Good for you. I just, for me, I'm like, yeah, no, I have no reason to post it and talk about it. Would love that money, but yeah, no, I'm not doing it. So I mean, for me, it's again, for when I do these brand segments, it's like I sometimes reach out to brands like, hey, I'm doing this cool segment, I worked with you before, would love to have you a part of it, I think you'd be a cool fit. Sometimes they reach out to me, and then as long as I've worked with them or I know their product and I know it's legit, I'm like, cool, yeah, let's do it. So it just depends on what it is. Like I just did a Hawaii show last week, and that was like, they wanted me to do all Halloween tips. So most of it was like DIY stuff at home with my little one anyways. And then I threw in a couple things that like we were already using in Halloween kits that were brands I knew. So it just depends.
Oh yeah, it does depend. So like basically you're making sure that it's authentic for you because your name, your face is around them. That
Yeah, well, I don't want like, I was trying to explain this to someone like a year ago when I got into it with one brand, because it was like they had this like fashion, like I forget what it was, some clutch thing, and they sent it to me like a week before the show, and I was like, I'm like, there's no guarantee, but like if I like it and they think I could throw it on, I'll throw it on. And so I'm like, messing with it, and the clutch broke, and I like email them like before the show, thank God, and I email them, and I'm like, hey, this broke, and I just don't know. I don't know if I could feature it because I'm afraid. And they got all pissy and like, oh, it must be a problem. I'm like, look, like maybe it was a faulty whatever, that happens, but I don't feel comfortable when like the one I had did that to share it. Like I feel like a fraud. I feel like most people overall trust me and they follow me, and my community is around me for a reason. I don't want people to be like, oh, so like she just gets paid all these bucks and then she posts this. Like it's the same with my social media. Like I'm a quote unquote, I hate this word, influencer. I'm so over it. Can we have a new word on social media, please? But I seriously, I've said this to my publicist. I'm like, I hate it. I really do. Because I don't think anyone should influence anyone. Like this is my biggest thing, especially with what's all going on in the world right now. Like I don't care where you stand, but like, don't be influenced by anyone. Like make your own decisions, critically think and make your own decisions and own it for yourself. And it's like when someone's going to tell you what to do, whatever it may be, doesn't matter, small or big something, you shouldn't be just influenced by them. So to me, I'm like, you should be inspiring, you should be empowering. They're choosing to follow you because they're hopefully getting something from you that you're sharing, not that like you're literally influencing them and it's like, go buy this. It's like I've always had I honestly, and I get in trouble for this all the time because like I've done campaigns where brands like, well, we just want you to say like, just go get this. And I'm like, yeah, that's not my audience. I'm not going to just turn to them and be like, go get this. I'll mention it. I'll say, hey, I use this in my daily life. I love it because of this. You can DM me to ask me questions. Like, I don't want to be the person who's like, yeah, I'm a commercial. I'm like, come and da-da-da-da. I just, yeah. And
by now.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, and I know I've gotten so much shade from other influencers who do it too, because they're like, well, that's my job. And I'm like, again, not shading you. That's how you do it. I just not personally how I've ever felt comfortable doing it. Like, I just want people to know it's authentic. Like, if I love it, cool, I'll share it. Like, if I'm using it, cool, here it is. But like, I don't want you to feel like you have to go buy it just because I'm sharing it. You know what I mean?
I was influenced. I had to. No, I'm just kidding.
What did I influence you on?
I know. Shots from the chat here. David says,
right?
Yeah, I was telling you. He's been helping him out with his stuff he's dealing with today. So that's pretty cool. We're doing positive vibes here.
I love it.
Charlene was an influence content creator for Jujubee. It was fun. And
yeah,
then, of course,
they have great bags, but I'm sure you love their bags. So you could speak about the diaper bag. Like I love Jujubee. Like, so I could speak about that. But I don't know. My biggest thing is, especially nowadays, like when you're just posting all this random stuff, I constantly get emails like, I don't know, 50 times a day, maybe sometimes, like where people are like, oh, I'd love to send you this. And can I send you, and how much is this? And what's your rate? And I'm like, look, I'm very blessed that it's part of my job. Don't get me wrong. Like, I get it. It's first world problems in a sense. People get annoyed when I talk about it. But at the same time, I'm like, I won't take half those projects because I don't want to look like a walking advertisement. I easily could and could like triple my, my situation.
Sure.
I just don't want to like sell out. I guess that's where I'm at. It's just like, I'm so over watching so many people sell out over different things. And I'm just like, can we just go back to being authentically ourselves and like just share what we feel called to share to? And if it turns into something of products, of branding and things, great, because there's all those things in the world, but like, why are we constantly being sold to? I'm just over it.
I guess I should probably remove sellout off my bucket list then. I thought that was the way to go. Well, let's talk about everything with Allie. The podcast. You're in the podcast space. It must be a lot of fun, or is it challenging? I don't know. Everyone has different experiences.
I love the podcast space. Yeah, no, I love the podcast space. So my podcast was originally called Strip Down with Allie Levine. And for those that don't know, I was on a crazy show on Bravo a few years ago with my husband called Strip. So I took the name branding, and was like, okay, strip down with Allie Levine. But it was being stripped down to my real raw self as a new mom. And it was all about my postpartum depression journey, everything I was kind of going through, all those things. And then the pandemic and life got crazy in 2020. And I felt like called to share more than just motherhood. And that's when it changed to everything with Allie Levine, because I wanted it to like essentially pivot to like anyone that wanted to share their real and raw story, especially what was going on, versus just motherhood. And so that's what it's been all about. And I'm actually about to release a second podcast. I decided I'm going to release a spirituality podcast. So I'm excited.
Oh, so my spirituality, what does that look like now? I know you have your own face, but I'm sure you want to respect other ones. Like, how do you approach it? Like, what do you?
I'm going to kind of just honestly go with the flow with it. I don't have like my intention is just to open people's minds in that space, no matter where you're coming from, and to just, again, help people, I think, find more of themselves, do that soul work, because I feel very, very, very strongly that we all are being called to do that right now on a collective level. So I want to do it to really just be intentional about helping others. With that, I've had so many people DM me and say they're struggling for all different reasons right now. And I really do feel like it is such a soul level. So I'm like, how can I help in this space? This is a soul journey I've been going through for the last few years. It's something I feel like really called to speak on. So I'm excited. So it'll be out soon. I'm working on it. And I'm excited to have just different people on, like you said, different faiths, different ideas. I'm not really like locked into anything that has to be one or another. I'm sure it's going to be controversial, but hey, that's me. I mean, for me, it's like, let's just all like share different ideas and like have conversations around it. Since when did we have to censor each other? So I'm excited for it. And speaking of that, I love the podcast space because there's not as much censorship. Like I feel like social media, you do anything outside the box and it's like, oh, shadow ban, oh, censored, oh, and it's just like, whoa, when did we have these like IG police, Facebook police? It's just like seriously though, it's just like, it's crazy. I mean, I posted the other day, I was like drinking one of my green drinks, and all I posted on my stories was like, this is one of the ways I stay healthy. And they put a COVID label on it. And I was like, dude.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha.
But I wasn't saying anything about that.
I see what you mean though. I've seen those things.
Stay healthy. Like, this is something I do, because people will ask me, well, what are some of the things you do, like just to keep your body, naturally healthy? And I was literally just sharing a drink I was drinking, and they like all of a sudden it popped up and I got a warning, and I'm like, what did I do?
Yeah, I see those a lot more now. Yeah, the COVID warnings.
So this is what I'm talking about. So the podcast space, I feel like you don't see those labels. You don't see like the constant warnings. It's just like everyone just shares whatever they want to talk about, whatever it is, and you can just talk, and that's what I love about a podcast, a conversation. There's something so like fluid and magical about people having real conversations, just kind of being like shouted out on social, and people just being in a very crowded space and feeling like you're constantly trying to like get in someone's face. I don't know. I feel like the podcast space is just so much more authentic, and it's blowing up more because of it, because people need this community and this connection. So I actually really love it. I mean, it has its challenges with like editing, obviously, or like sound. Like I came on, you're like, we can't hear you. Like I have that happen every now and again with a guest, and I'm like, you're muted. How can you sound, but other than that, I mean, when Zoom wants to work, other than that, it's cool. I enjoy it. I get amazing guests, and I love that people are real and raw with me overall. I've had some really cool celebs and public figures that have gotten way more raw with me than most of their teams have enjoyed, but I've enjoyed it, and I think other people have enjoyed it. So it's cool, and I'm excited for the spiritual one, because I feel like it's going to be a whole new, way of opening people up.
What's been a piece of feedback that stuck with you after a fan probably checked out a couple episodes?
One of my favorite things a few months ago, someone wrote me, was that they were, I didn't want to hear this about them, but it was a nice way to hear that everything I'm doing is like, doing something in the world, right? We all want to know we're making change. So I I got this message and they were like, I was in a really dark place and I found your show and I started listening like all the way from the beginning. And first off, I had no idea I had postpartum depression. It was a mom.
Oh.
And she was like, and I started listening and I thought, wow, I have so many similar things going on with me. And I just kept writing them off as like nothing. And then listening to your show and you sharing your journey, I started realizing like, wow, there really is so much here. And she was like, so I wanted to let you know, not only did your show like help me so much, but it also now has opened me up to being more real and raw with myself, for asking for help. And now I am getting help. And I mean, it brought me to tears because I'm like, that's what I want. I want to help other people. I want, what I share to inspire others. And again, for people to, do the work on themselves, because we all owe it to ourselves. So that was really big. And another person reached out to me and just said, I appreciate in such a censored space, that you are so authentic and real and raw in yourself. And that meant a lot to me too, because I do get a lot of hate now for people being like, oh, why can't you just, keep it, whatever. And I'm like, yeah, no, I can't. It's just not who I am.
Right. So as soon as someone is uncomfortable, it's political. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Right. No matter what. And you're like, okay, yeah, exactly.
What's the release schedule look like? Is it, are both shows weekly or both shows monthly? What's the plan for those?
Yeah. So it was twice a week. It was Mondays and Fridays. And then I realized I was getting a little ahead of myself, a little crazy. And I was like, yeah, okay, let me reel it in a little bit. So now it's just Wednesdays. And that's also because I want to create space to drop my new podcast. And I want to have time to do both shows. I still plan on releasing both shows. We'll see how that goes. But we'll see. But I really just want to make sure I'm intentional about like spending my time on it. So I was like, you know what, I'll pull it back. And it's funny, at first I was super nervous. I was like, oh, it's doing really well. It's getting really good downloads and it's actually doing better now. And I'm like, oh, good. I made the right decision. I think
absolutely.
People have more time to listen to the same, like one guest versus jumping to the next guest and trying to keep up, so it's, again, I'm a workaholic, like I said, re-workaholic in progress. I'm constantly like, fixing myself, constantly like having to be so aware, like, oh, I did so many episodes. I don't need to release all of them at once. Calm down, bank them, give them to yourself for a rainy day. I get too like caught up. So I have to like check myself and be like, no.
Yeah.
It's okay, I mean, what about you? What do you think about the podcast space?
It's one of the things that's given me the lifeline. Like my depression came from performance depression. Like I'm a comedian and I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm going through some stuff,
yeah,
and I basically had a roadblock in 2020. Couldn't travel, and so I leaned into the podcast in that way, and it was a release because I had really no one to talk to. But now I'm having that issue now of like frequencies and shows. In fact, before you're on live, I just made the announcement that this show is being retired next month because I want to make more space to do things. So the next 6 weeks, I got these heavy hitting guests, yourself included, because I want to end pretty strong. So it is kind of a thing. Like booking is always the hardest thing for me. Sometimes I have too many guests. Sometimes I have no guests. Yeah.
Or they don't show up and you're like, that's why I emailed you. I was like, I will be there in a few minutes. You're like, she's not showing up, because it's happened to me before where I've, been, doing recordings and then, thank God I'm not live because I know I can't be with my schedule, but even with just recordings, and I'm like, oh crap. And then I banked on that guest and I don't have anything the next week. And I'm like, oh, guess I'm doing a solo episode tonight because I don't have anything to record,
Right. Yeah. It's very hardcore, like high school book report vibes. Like,
oh, that's so true. It's so true.
Tomorrow. Ooh. Can I ask you a cliche question from the stylist side? I know you get this question a lot, but I have to ask you. Since styling is like one of your many bags, is there anyone left that you have yet to style that you would love to?
Ooh, I love this question. So, it's funny now that we're like right outside of Nashville, I'm probably going to hit up that scene. I've been talking to some different people and hope, in the, near future to meet some more people. And I've always wanted to work in the country space. So I don't really have a specific like person per se, but I definitely am like wanting to do something in the country space. So definitely that. I've always said Zendaya just because I met her once and her look she's always like just so out of the box. She doesn't care. She tries it all. She loves to do it all. So she would totally be someone I wouldn't ever write off if like, they came knocking, I'd be like, sure, I could do that. But honestly, I feel like I've styled so much of Hollywood. And it's funny, like, and I get shade for this, but not to say, I love certain clients I work with in Hollywood. There's good and bad, all good, whatever. But I have to say now that I'm working with like everyday people, there's something so cool about watching those people get so excited over their own transformations versus like, of course, celebrity, like they look good and they're excited, but it's just a different thing because they're used to it and it's like what they do and it's part of their role. But with an everyday person, whether it be like I was helping a dad a couple months ago who was struggling with his look for a new job, and like he emailed me and he's like, oh, I got the promotion and I got this thing, and by the way, I also met this woman, and I think because I was, feeling confident, and that it just, hearing those stories, like this is where the magic for me, like with passion happens. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like your life literally transformed from 4 different outfits. And like, by the way, it wasn't actually the outfits. It was the fact that you stepped into your own authenticity, which is your superpower, and found that confidence in what you were doing. And that's why I always say confidence is your best accessory.
I have not been fortunate enough to have a personal stylist, but I have done Stitch Fix, the box things, and sometimes they miss. But when they don't, it's like, whoa.
You feel it, right? You're like, oh, I'm feeling myself. Yeah.
Yes, no one gets me. I'm red.
Right, exactly. And so like that feeling, right? And like, don't get me wrong, there were so many moments of that with red carpets and dressing people and like watching them just like light up and be like, oh my God, best dress, like huge moments in my career. But now, again, being like a mom and all the things I'm doing, I think I just feel like so excited when I see other moms light up and like other women who are struggling with their body and they feel good in what they're wearing. Like there's just such a transformation. I feel like honored to be a part of it. So it's just been a cool shift, but I'm definitely open to, like I said, the country side of things, and like certain clients still hit me up for like remote, styling and things like that. So I'm still like, I'm still in it. I've shifted. I'm finding the few that work with my schedule, because the rest, let's be real, they're demanding, and my schedule don't work with theirs, and theirs don't work with mine. It's all good.
That mompreneur pivot, I love that. Make it work. I'm so glad that you're able to come on tonight. Allie Levine, you can check it out all over social media. We'll get to your promotion first, but before we do that, are you down to play a game with me?
Always.
Yeah, this one's a classic. It's called True or False. I'm going to say some statements. You tell me whether I'm saying it's true or false, and then you tell me why.
About you, like, so what's the context? Like, is it about you or it's about
statements about you? So I say a statement, like I said, true or false. My favorite movie is Basketball. Okay. You'll say false because I love whatever. Nothing too pressing. Okay. True or false. Where were you last night? No, I'm just kidding.
Whoa.
I'm just kidding. True or false? I prefer a day by the lake over a day by the beach.
False.
You're a beach person. Respect.
Yeah.
Not many beaches in Tennessee, though.
Yeah, that's funny. There's a few that I've been like checking out online that people have told me like are like little beachy spots, and I'm like, okay. About. So yeah, I don't know. There's something about the beach, but you know what? That's like me with the vacations, right? Like one day again, when I'm traveling all over, like I don't know, like Dominican, like Hawaii, like all the islands. There's something just Mexico. Like I just love, like I love going and just sitting on the beach, putting your feet in the sand. It's awesome.
Yeah, well, I hate sand, so I'm so glad. I'm so glad someone loves it. It gets everywhere. Like, how's it show up inside of my trunks? All right, next one. It's October, so my favorite movie genre are horror movies.
False. This conversation, my husband knows this, and he loves horror movies, and he had something on last night. I'm like, could you turn that off, please? Could we watch something more rom-com? He's always like, oh, rom-com. I'm like, yes, you know what I like.
Are you a rom-com? Do you prefer Netflix or over Hallmark, or do you have a preference of what kind?
I mean, I would say probably more Hallmark, but it depends on what Netflix has got going on. But look, it's not just rom-com. I don't get the point of horror. Like, it's like, so you're scared, and then what? I don't
either.
Yeah,
I don't get anything. to me, it's a lot of it's cheese. It's like, oh, I'll make the sound design really loud, so you go.
Yeah, exactly. That was like last night. I forgot what Halloween was being, whatever, advertised on the TV, and Justin had, Office reruns on, and it was just like so loud. I'm like, oh my God, lower it. And he's like, it's just when they do the Halloween commercial. And I'm like, that's so obnoxious, just to get your attention. Like, oh, here comes Jason to scare you, or whatever it is.
Right. If Jason was a Halloween movie, I'd be scared too. Like, hey, wrong franchise.
Right.
Number 3. It sounds cheesy, but motherhood is truly the greatest gift. True or false?
True. And it's such a cheesy cliche, but it is. I tell everyone, I'm like, it's the most magical, wild, insane, beautiful ride of your life. And I'm just in it. I just started.
Tammy Gouveia says, Abbott Costello beat Frankenstein. That was all right. I'll have to get to pass. True or false? Pineapple on pizza is so misunderstood.
Oh, true. I love pineapple on pizza.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
so good. We had that last week. My hubby made he makes custom like the dough and the whole thing, and oh, it was so good. We had that last week.
I love it. I got 3 more for you. When it comes to date night, I am the one with better ideas. That'd be you.
Oh, that'd be me. Always. My husband's like I told him, I'm like, we have to have date night this week. And he's like, okay, what do you want to do? And I'm like, here we go again. And I'm like, I don't know, you watch a new documentary. Like, I'm like, he's like, are we going to watch a movie? What do you want to do? Should we go sit outside? I'm like, I love you. But like, yeah, no. Okay. I'll handle it.
You know what? That's
almost 10 years. All right.
That's you're a keeper. Where you're like, I'm going to try. Look,
Right?
let's get this on. When I'm on vacation, I've been known to choose more upscale hotels. True or false?
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, unless it's like some really cool like Airbnb. Like when we went in California, like Idlewild, I found this like super hidden gem that was like super cheap and whatever. Like because I love the like adventure and whatever. Other than that, yeah, I'm more upscale.
I'm the same way. Like my thing is Hyatt or better. If I have the cash.
Yeah, you're like looking at the reviews, you're like reading what's going on, the stars. Like, all right, yeah, I guess I could go with that. My food, I might be like more in the middle because I feel like some people just put mean reviews because I just get pissed. But like the hotels are like, yeah, no, it's got to be upscale.
I'm 45% bougie. I swear to you. And lastly, my favorite streaming service is Netflix. True or false?
False. I don't know if I have a favorite streaming service. We just started using Peacock. It's interesting. It has different types of shows. But I don't know. I've never been. Everyone's like, oh, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, I've never been all about Netflix. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's certain things I watch, but never been all about it.
By the way, check out my new show, Flobo Start on Netflix, exclusively. I'm kidding. I mean, it's true.
Let's fuck that up.
There's a huge pineapple fight in the chat right now. Pro and anti-pineapple.
Nice. I love it. Pineapple on pizza is like, it really is misunderstood. And then if you add like a little bit of ham, a little bit of chicken. Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. I knew we were like this. Sorry, like James. So much fun, Levine, having on the show. Wassup Flobo after hours. Now here's the fun part. Now, if someone want to check you out, connect with you, engage with you, send you product ideas, how do you go about doing that?
For sure. So you can find my website, AliLevine.com, just my name, ALILEVINE.com. And you can email and join my newsletter there. Please do drop your email so I can add you to it. My social, Ali Levine Design. I spend most of my time on Instagram, but I am on, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, Twitter, all the things. I show up. So definitely check them out. And my podcast, anywhere, you guys know podcast, Everything with Ali Levine. And definitely stay tuned because my spiritual one is going to be fabulous.
Oh, do we have a name for that one yet? Or is it like hush, hush, hush?
It's hush, hush, hush. I'll give, it has Ali in it. We'll leave it at that. It has my first name in it.
Oh, wow. Well, look out for that. Make sure if you do listen to the show, you drop 5 stars because we all go by stars, baby. That's all we need.
We all talk about stars. Yeah, please leave a good 5-star review. Even just like a quick little tidbit. It's like takes 30 seconds. You can do it while you're in the bathroom. Just drop the review.
I
it's forever. And I'm like, literally just do it while you go to the bathroom. Like it's quick, done.
Priorities.
You can do it.
I can go, or I can, because I heard once you have kids, you can't use the bathroom in peace. So you might as well just put the 5-star.
Well, that's the thing. So it's like my girls join me. My husband ends up walking in, asking me a question. My dog's standing outside. It's like a line out the bathroom. It's like, what's happening? Why can't I have personal space for 10 minutes? Not even. Like everybody's in my space. Like even if I do my makeup, it's like I walk in. It's like a line of people. I'm like, hi. Why aren't we all outside the bathroom? And then my husband joins in. He comes to me, and I'm like, hello.
We are family.
Yeah, I just came in the shower, like taking a shower. All of a sudden, here they all come along. It's like, oh, let's all watch mom in the shower. Sure, great. It's just, yeah.
As a single man, that's absolutely terrifying. That's worse than Squid Game. Just.
I'm telling you, that is a mom thing. The bathroom thing, I don't know why it's such a mom thing. It's like, oh yeah, no, you just don't get to be in peace. And then my Oscar decides to come on the floor. My cat walks by and I'm like, hey, bring the party. Sure. Why not?
I'm not okay. I will not have kids then. That's it for me. Wassup Flobo after hours. You're doing it for both of us, Ali. I'll be back here next Monday, same time, same place. But until next time, after hours is closed.
The bed is still lit.